boys and girls, and welcome to another edition of the Concession Stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of the fourth film in the Bad Boys saga, Bad Boys Ride or Die. It is an action comedy buddy cop film, and it stars Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, with Adil and Bilal returning as directors from the previous installment, Bad Boys for Life. And this go around, joining Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, we have Joey Pants, Vanessa Hudson, Alexander Ludwig, Paula Nunez, and Jacob Sopio. I believe I'm saying his last name right. We have some new additions to this cast: Eric Dean, Rhea Seahorn, and Tiffany Haddish, to name a few. This addition to the Bad Boys franchise, we find Mike Lowry and Marcus Burnett trying to clear the name of their late captain, Conrad Howard, falsely accused of a conspiracy where they are also linked up and framed for murder as well. This is, as I stated, the fourth film. Did we really need a fourth film in the Bad Boy saga? No. You can argue we didn't need four films at all, but I enjoyed them all. I actually love this franchise. I love Will Smith and Martin Lawrence in these roles, and I was highly anticipating this film. As much as the last edition, Bad Boys for Life, wasn't my favorite, I would go as far to say it was the worst in the franchise. It was watchable, but it didn't feel Bad Boys. It felt like a generic action film, which at its core all of these films are. But the chemistry with Martin Lawrence and Will Smith is undeniable, and that's what really drives this franchise, and that was lost in the last film. And so this go around, I was really hoping, wishing, and praying that we kind of return to form with these characters and with this film franchise. I was pleasantly surprised. I went in with a certain amount of expectation. I try to eliminate all expectation when I, dive into these films, but I couldn't help myself with this one. I had a level that I wanted it to meet, and I'm happy to report that it surpassed that level. Bad Boys Ride or Die is probably the best Bad Boys film since the original film that came out in 1995. And, give me a little time to stew on it, I would probably say it's better than the first one. This is probably the best Bad Boys film in the franchise. Not really prepared to say that yet, but it's there. It's right on the heels of the original. I love this film. This film had no business being as good as it turned out to be. Is it cheesy and corny at times? Yes. All of them are. All of them are. So it's no point being shocked and surprised by some of the corniness that takes place in it. That's what you go to this film for. That's what you go to all of these films for. The comedy that's mixed in with the action and the gravity of the situation that kind of breaks the levity. And they did it. They did it here. It was missing in the last one, and it returned with a vengeance here. Normally I start off with the performances, but I gotta start off with the direction of this film. Adil and Bilal, who in their previous addition to this franchise, as I stated ad nauseum, did not really like it. It didn't feel like a Bad Boys film that first go around. I think they learned from their mistakes. This was a beautifully directed film. It balanced the action and the comedy and the drama and all that was taking place, the weight of the situation, you know, they perfectly mixed. And the camera work here, you never got bored, you never got tired, you never sat still for the 2 hours that you are strapped into your seats watching this film. It kept you moving. And man, what a ride. It's called Ride or Die for a reason. It was truly a ride. And thankfully we didn't die at the end. But you do get the ride. Uh really good camera work here. The cinematography was top notch. The use of drones, and I saw that little video that's circling social media with that shot, that we get that video game first person shooter shot with Will Smith with this apparatus around him, the little behind the scenes of how they created that shot, and it was all in one shot. No, if when you see it on screen, you think they're doing quick cuts, the way they're flipping back and forth to his close up, and then with the gun, like the first shooter in a video game, and then flip back to his close up and all that. That's all in one shot. And it's all because it's on this rig that's attached to his chest. And the gun is actually attached to this, like a little steady cam thing. And he just spins it around real quick and comes back. And it's amazing how they worked it. And it worked perfectly. It wasn't cheesy. It was an excellent little section there. Wasn't too long. It was really quick, maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds that shot was used, and that was it. Normally when you get something that looks that good, directors and producers, and studios, they look at that and like, man, that is cool, we need more of those shots, and they'll try to shoe in a lot more of that, and then it gets kind of stale. But they didn't. They gave you just enough of that. But with the other camera setups throughout the film, the action wise, these set pieces throughout this film were great, man. We didn't need the little tricky camera work. It was just great setups, and it made me scratch my head and wonder what happened on that Batgirl film. If in case you don't know the story, they being Adil and Bilal directed Batgirl for Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers decided to scrap that film. They finished filming it and everything. This was the film that had Michael Keaton returning as Batman. You had J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon, and you had Firefly, and of course you had Batgirl and all that in that film. Warner Brothers said it was unwatchable. It was that bad that they burnt the copies of the film. We'll never see this movie, never, because they felt it was unwatchable. And I couldn't wrap my head around it when they said that, because as much as I had problems with Bad Boys for Life, I still felt it was directed fairly well. So I don't understand that. So we fast forward to this film. I'm like, what happened? What what happened? Because this looks amazing. They also directed a few episodes of Miss Marvel, the Disney Plus Marvel Studios show, and those episodes they directed were amazing. I love those episodes, probably the best episodes of that series. And so it just makes me wonder what happened. They're on a short list of directors to take over for Spider-Man 4. And so after watching this, I could see why. There was some really awesome action that took place throughout this film. Let's get to the acting here. Let's get to some of these performances throughout this film. Of course, let's start with our two stars here, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. My biggest bugaboo about Bad Boys for Life, the third one, was that Martin Lawrence took a back seat. Martin Lawrence was more of a supporting character in that film. uh, it was the Will Smith show. It was the Mike Lowry show. That was his movie. Everything centered around Mike Lowry in that movie, and that's one of the main reasons I couldn't really enjoy it. Bad Boys for Life. Interesting movie, a good movie within itself, but not Bad Boys quality. This go around, Martin Lawrence came back. He's back in this movie. Marcus Burnett is back. This is the Marcus Burnett that we fell in love with back in 1995. Older, a little pudgier, but is him. I loved it. I loved that they shared the screen. You know, it wasn't Will Smith movie. It wasn't Martin Lawrence movie. It was both of their films. They shared this movie. It's Bad Boys with an S. And thank God they figured it out this go around. Will Smith is back to form here as well. I enjoyed him better in here in this film than I did in the previous film. He was more vulnerable here. He was still his charming self, still his reckless self, but you could tell he's older now. And that's one of the things that I appreciated about this film. They didn't try to play it like they're still 20 something year old detectives, you know, still jumping around and doing John Wick kung fu and stuff like that. No, they played into the fact that they're older now. And I like that. I appreciated that. And of course, the chemistry. That's the main reason you go to see these films. Bad Boys is built on the chemistry between Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. And it's still there. They still feel like a partnership. They actually feel like a brotherhood here. I mean, the energy that they give off of each other, you can honestly tell. It radiates off the screen that these two brothers love each other, respect each other, and have fun working with one another. And if there is any beef, and I'm not saying there is, I hadn't read any or anything like that. I'm just throwing it out there in case it comes out in a book or something later on. If there was any beef between those two, you cannot see it. There is no inkling of it on screen. They really carry these films, and they continue to carry the film here in Ride or Die. Vanessa Hudgens and Alexander Ludwig, they returned from part 3 in their previous roles, and they got a little more meat to chew on here in this film, and they did a pretty good job. Not so much Vanessa Hudgens. She was just there. They didn't give her much to do, but she was in the film a little more. She had a kind of a bigger part to play. There's a little subplot there between her and Alexander Ludwig's character, and that was interesting to play with. But I enjoyed them. I enjoyed them in this film. I enjoyed Jacob Supriel's performance as well as Mike Lowry's son. You know, he was the villain in the last film, and now he's the hero in this one. Normally I wouldn't like that. Actually, I don't like that. I still had problems with that in this film, that he was the villain in the last film, and now he's kind of this redeemable hero in this film, trying to atone for the sins of the past thing. You know, like the Kylo Ren of Star Wars. How they tried to redeem that character later on after he killed Han Solo. And I just couldn't buy it. I couldn't buy it, and I could not get behind that character. Same thing here to a degree. You know, that character that he plays killed Captain Howard in the previous film, and now he's trying to redeem himself in a sense. He's still his vicious, murderous self in here, but he has this redeeming quality about him. I actually loved his performance. It was one of the standout performances in this film, you know, and the scenes with him and Will Smith, I thought were well done. I would love to see him in more. I would love to see him in his own film, not just a spinoff of this movie. Or it's just his own thing. I want to see him in more. I did enjoy him uh more in this film than I did in the last film, and I did enjoy him in the last film as well. But he had more to work with here, emotional and stuff. Uh, we had a switch here. We had a little switch here with the character of Teresa Burnett, who is the wife of Marcus Burnett, Martin Lawrence's character's wife. Normally, for the past three films, that character was portrayed by Teresa Randall. But for whatever reason, I tried to research it. I couldn't find the reason why, but she did not return for this film. And she was replaced by Tasha Smith. Tasha Smith did a good job. She did a decent job. I mean, she wasn't a main focal point of the story, didn't have a lot of scenes in it. So when she came in, it was good, really couldn't tell a big difference because, to be honest with you, Teresa Randall didn't have a big part in the other film. So it's not like this is a major role. It's not like they're replacing Martin Lawrence or Will Smith here. But I think she did a pretty decent job. Of our new characters that was in this film, the villain portrayed by Eric Dane. I like Eric Dane, especially coming off of Euphoria. I never watched Grey's Anatomy, even though it was on in my house all the time between my wife and my daughters who watched that show. I didn't watch him on there, but I did watch him on Euphoria. Loved him on Euphoria. A few other projects that he was involved with, but here he was the villain, and he was pretty one note. He was a pretty much a mustache twirling villain here, but he was very menacing. Melanie Laurent, who plays well, should I say who she played? I guess, well, slight spoiler. Slight spoiler. She plays Will Smith's wife. She plays Mike Lowry's wife here, and she's not in the movie much, but I don't know, that character really wasn't needed. Even though she plays a bigger part in the climax of the film, I don't feel that character was really needed. It's just more. I'm not gonna say she wasn't needed, but I wish we would have got more backstory of her and Mike Lowry, and I kind of could have felt that marriage thing because for three straight films, Mike Lowry has been this bachelor playboy, and then we get to this movie, and the first two scenes he's getting married. You're like, okay, where'd this come from? To somebody we never met in any other movie. And so that kind of took me like, what? Where are we going here? That's one of my negatives here. My other negative would be Rhea Seehorn. And if you watch Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, was she on Breaking Bad? I know she was on Better Call Saul. Really good actress. Not here. I did not enjoy her performance here. She plays the daughter of Captain Howard, and she showed no emotion. Now I know her character was not supposed to a degree, but I mean, it was no emotion. She was like a robot to me in portions of this movie. But I don't know. You needed that character. I just didn't like the way that character was pulled off. I can't sit here and say, well, such and such would have played that character better, or so on and so. I really can't think of nobody else, because it's not her per se. I think it was the way that character was written that kind of failed her, because I've seen her act before. So I don't understand what happened here, but that was my other bugaboo. One bugaboo that I knew was gonna be a bugaboo when they popped up on screen, because I had no idea they were in this movie, and when they popped up, I was like, oh no. Oh no, because I do not enjoy her at all, and that is Tiffany Haddish, God bless her. I am not a Tiffany Haddish fan. I know she has her fans. I get it. I understand. She's just not for me. I don't enjoy her in nothing. Nothing. She is not funny to me. I actually enjoyed her in this movie. Now, she isn't in it long. It's only one scene, but I actually enjoyed her in that scene. I think we had the right amount of Tiffany Haddish. Not too much. We had just the right amount of her, and it worked perfectly. I enjoyed her. She was actually funny. I actually laughed when she was on screen. I, hey, you get it when you can get it. Enjoyed that as well. The story, moving into the story elements, the story worked, but there are, of course, holes in this story. The plot has it looked like Swiss cheese at parts, had a few holes in it, but I liked some of the elements they added to it, some of the homages that we got. When they were investigating, they were actually doing detective work. They were still doing their jobs, even though they were on the run and going back. They revisiting cases, and I love the little Easter eggs and nuggets there that they're saying, oh, there was a case that we had in 2003. And in case you don't know, in 2003, that's when Bad Boys 2 came out. And so they brought up that case. They brought up the case back in 95 when they had the big drug bust, and all of this stuff was connected to this cartel from this film. And it was just nice the way they kind of just planted those seeds. They didn't harp on it. They didn't have to go back and rehash things from past movies. Just mentioning it, I think that was written well. I really did, and appreciate and love that element of the story. But there are still some holes in here that you're like, okay, how did they find them here, or how did they not catch them here? And stuff like that. It's just logistics just didn't add up for me, and in certain parts. But as always, when you watch movies, you gotta suspend disbelief at points, and I just took it for what it was. None of these movies are Citizen Kane, and they're not trying to be Citizen Kane or Gone with the Wind. They are what they are. It's Bad Boys, so you just run with it. And it was a beautiful joy to see yet again, even though he did not direct part 3, he managed to have a cameo in part 3. And even though he didn't direct the 4th film, he did have a cameo in this film as well. None other than the great Michael Bay, showing up, showing love, and showing respect to this franchise that started his career. Bad Boys from 1995 was his first film, and he always speaks highly of the franchise. He always speaks how he wished he could have continued to direct the films in this franchise. It was just how the budgets, Michael Bay is a big budget explosion guy, so it wasn't gonna mesh well with Sony Pictures to have a $300 million Bad Boys film. So they had to move on. But it was good to see him pop up in this film. Overall, if you can't tell, I loved the movie. I absolutely loved it for what it was. Enjoyable time in the theater. I think this is officially the first big summer film of the year. We've had some films let us down in the past couple of months, with Fall Guy and Furiosa and things of that nature, thinking they were going to be big hits, and they, dropped like a rock in the ocean. But this film actually has potential, especially judging by when I went to go see Fall Guy, it was maybe 5 people in that theater. When I went to go see Furiosa, same thing, maybe 6. When I went to go see Bad Boys Ride or Die, packed theater. And I haven't been in a packed theater, I want to say, in about a year. This was it was a joy, and to hear the laughter and the community, and it's just a commune thing, man. When you in a theater with a bunch of people and they're feeling it, they're laughing at what you're laughing at, they're gasping at what you're gasping at. It just feels organic and joyous, and you can let the weight of the world off of your shoulders. And Bad Boys Ride or Die definitely did that. Bad Boys Ride or Die, currently in a theater near you, gets a letter grade of a B plus. I really, really love this film. Like I said, give it some time. Give it some time, and it might. I mean, if it do, it's gonna be by the hair of his chinny chin chin, but be the best Bad Boys film in the franchise. But as it stands right now, I still can't put it over the original, but it's right there on his behind. I would love to know, did you check out Bad Boys Ride or Die, or are you planning on checking it out? I highly recommend it. You can let me know by email. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for this show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube. Like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of Bad Boys Ride or Die. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.